This podcast is brought to you by Cybernet, the security awareness training solution designed for schools. Developed with insights from IT directors in education, Cybernet shields your school from online threats, data breaches, phishing, and more. Trusted by schools and built by industry experts, Cybernet empowers your staff and students to stay secure online. Cybernet, your trusted partner in safeguarding the future.
Welcome to the Zero Breach Zone, the ultimate podcast dedicated to safeguarding K-12 schools from cyber threats and beyond.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Phil, your co-host guiding you through the intersection of cybersecurity and education.
Each episode, Phil and I will dive into conversations that matter, breaking down the latest cybersecurity challenges that schools face.
And we're not doing it alone. We'll be bringing some experts in the field from the EdTech world and beyond for interviews, getting their take on the most pressing issues.
Plus, every episode will wrap up with a recurring segment, The Parting Tool, where we'll share a top tip or tool that you can start using immediately to stay ahead of breaches, phishing, and everything in between.
So, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you here with us. Let's not just listen, but let's take some action. Connect with us on LinkedIn and other socials and join the conversation. Together, we can build a strong community dedicated to protecting our schools. All right. Welcome back to the Zero Breach Zone. We're glad you're here today. It's good to be back in the studio and talking about all kinds of good stuff about cybersecurity and what have you in EdTech. Andy, it's good to see you again. How you doing?
Nice to see you, Phil.
Yeah.
Doing pretty good, holding on the fort here in Tennessee.
All right.
Weather is nice and everything's going good.
We got some good weather here in Chicago for a change. Actually, probably one of our last good days that we have before the next season. So we have two seasons in Chicago: winter and construction. So we're about to end construction and go into winter. Although there is some construction that happens during winter, depending on if we have a La Nina or an El Nino weather pattern here in Chicago. So you just never know what you're going to get. If you don't like the weather today, you'll have different weather tomorrow or in an hour for that matter. Who knows?
Got to have some variety.
Yeah. So what's been going on? What's new for you?
Most notably, I got to meet you in person recently. So there's a nice bonus. We've, if you guys have been following along, Phil and I have been doing this all virtually to date and had not yet met in real life. So we had that opportunity this past week to actually meet and talk and make some plans and discuss cybersecurity and education and AI and all kinds of cool things going on.
IRL. It was cool to meet you in real life. And you know what? One thing we found out is that we both have wives named
Jody.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have an episode down the road where we'll bring on the wives and see how they deal with a husband that has that's into cybersecurity and tech all the time.
Yeah. Coping skills for spouses.
Yeah. Well, and we could probably go into how often we may have to go into help desk mode with our family at times. Not just our wives, but our family.
Yeah, and I did make the mistake one time of my wife was giving me a task to do, and I asked her if she'd opened a ticket. So that was a mistake. So.
I have not gone that far yet. But that's not. I was going to say that's not a bad idea, but it could be a bad idea.
So I do have a ticketing system I set up at home for myself. So I have an instance of SpiceWorks at home.
I bet you do.
So like, time to change the air filter. It's programmed every 45 days to tell me, hey, Andy, you have a ticket to open or change the air filter. So
notifications. I like that idea.
Yes. Yeah. So just don't recruit the rest of the family into the ticket system.
Yeah. Well, I always used to say, it's anybody who knows me knows I have 6 children, and but I always call them my beta testers because they've been with me all along in my tech director journey, and a lot of times I'll try out new technology with them and beta test it with them before I say, hey, if it's good enough for them, it might be good enough for our students in our schools. They'll give me honest feedback,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's been, my youngest is a senior now, planning to graduate at the end of this year. And I'm not looking forward to him being gone because he is my ultimate tester. I use his account for everything. So whenever his account gets deactivated, I'm going to have to come up with a new test account to access things.
Yeah,
but that'll be a sad day for me.
Yeah. I remember doing that plenty of time with different accounts as well, trying things out. And yeah, it's been interesting, especially learning when they were younger than 13, how I was going to get around that as far as downloading apps and that sort of thing. Staying COPA compliance, if you will, or avoiding COPA. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but
COPA avoidance.
COPA avoidance, COPA compliance. There you go. At any rate, yeah, it was very good to meet you at RTM. That's one of the conferences that is out there that I would highly recommend. I think, they have different tracks. So they have administrator tracks, they have CTO tracks, they have curriculum and instruction tracks. They even have facilities and security track as well. And so, and what's nice is we're kind of all together for some things, but then we break out into the separate tracks where we can get, learning done. So, I know I learned a bunch at this last RTM with just a couple of sessions, and we had the luxury to present together, Andy, and present some things we're doing with cybersecurity. And, of course, CyberNut is part of that mix. You want to talk a little bit about our experience presenting, and then we'll talk about what we got out of RTM this time around?
Yeah, it was great. And so that's a good chance to meet because it's pretty easy to bond over things like cybersecurity and student safety because we all have our own horror stories and things that keep us up at night. So it's good to get together with a group of like-minded people who have those same experiences and have that same passion for making things better. And so presentation was great because we got to talk about, different kinds of cyber threats that are facing students and staff today, and then some ways to kind of combat that between both technical controls, but also through education and security awareness and getting people on board with, being aware of, phishing isn't just poorly worded emails anymore. And there was a lot of attention to, I know it's so much fun to say is the quishing, the QR code phishing. That was a good highlight.
I kept thinking, Quidditch. I kept thinking that when we were talking about quishing and stuff. I thought, okay, you're squishing the ball in Quidditch or something. I don't know. But,
you got to quish it and then smish it and then vish it.
Yeah, vish it. Yeah, all of those things. But it was nice talking to, seeing the light bulb go on with some of our audience members. Like, oh, wow, I hadn't even thought about that. On the other hand, some of the audience members brought out some things that, that maybe we haven't thought about or haven't had to deal with yet. So we talk about not if, but when, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the one thing.
I was going to say, one of the things that an audience member brought up that I don't know if you caught, but we were talking about security controls and MFA, and they mentioned how they use MFA down to kindergarten in their school.
Yeah, I did catch that.
And I've thought about that repeatedly since then, about the ways that could work and ways to make that happen. I know in ClassLink they have some options for a simpler MFA, like using PIN numbers and things like that. And there could be space, a vendor space, in the next few years if that becomes one of those compliance requirements or cyber insurance requirements. Where you could maybe do like some number instead of number matching, like color matching, like what's your favorite color, and the kid has to pick like red, blue, green, yellow. There's some interesting ways that could be implemented.
Are we going to go back to the old CAPTCHAs? CAPTCHA for kids, basically. A kid CAPTCHA. You know what? I actually attended a conference last year where I got to meet the person who invented the CAPTCHA. He actually, believe it or not, and his name escapes me, so I'm embarrassed to not know that name offhand, but he actually is also the founder of Duolingo. So he created the Duolingo app, which thousands or millions of people use to learn different languages. And he happens to be a person that has second and third language. So it was very important to him. But when I met him or when he presented, he said, I am the person that everybody hates because I'm the guy who created CAPTCHA, and everybody gets annoyed at me automatically by just hearing that.
Yeah. Did you get any of that in your district? Any of that pitchforks? I know I made some shirts that say "Damn you, Andy Lombardo," to go along with our MFA implementation. Because every time someone has to do MFA, oh, damn you, Andy Lombardo.
Well, yeah, maybe MFA could be one of those. If you say MFA, you got to take a drink out of it or something. But one of those things. Yeah, that's kind of what it is sometimes. But, people are realizing more and more how important that is. And, it's something we do with every digital transaction we have nowadays. Whether it's at the store and you have to verify your PIN, or you have to verify who you are when you're trying to make a purchase. Sometimes that happens. Or you, at least it pops up on your mobile device that says, "Hey, I think fraud might be detected. Verify that you just tried to make this purchase or whatever before we'll let it go through, and try it again." So they cut it off right then and there, but then they tell you, "Hey, if you were honestly trying to do this, you need to do it again now."
I was just going to say that I was joking with my team this morning. When April Fool's comes around, it'd be a great idea to send out a mass message to the district and say, we've had so much success with MFA that we're now moving to 4-factor authentication, and give some there'll be a breathalyzer or a palm print or something outlandish. I think that could be fun.
Just DNA sample. That's all.
Right.
That's all we Yeah. I mean, that'll further confirm, who you are, who you aren't. Yeah. Wow. Did you learn anything at RTM that you want to bring back to us?
So one of the things with RTM is it's a really short conference. And so I think I was gone from home for 60 hours.
Yeah.
And so you're drinking from a fire hose the whole time. There's so much stuff. I think one of the things that really resonated with me was talking in a session with one of the school safety sessions. It was on AI weapons recognition. So the idea was they'd implemented a program where the exterior cameras on their school would use AI to identify guns if a gun shows up in the frame. And it really resonated for a lot of reasons. But one was he really spent a lot of time talking about basic security hygiene and talking about if you've not implemented the basics, then you shouldn't be looking at something like AI gun recognition. That, get those basics under control first, which the same crosses over to cybersecurity. If you're not doing MFA, then you shouldn't be worried about EDR, MDR, SIM, those kinds of things. So that really resonated. And also he talked a lot about, when you have those kinds of cross-department things like cameras, because a camera isn't strictly IT. It isn't strictly security. It isn't strictly facilities. So it just, it really talked about the need for finding the people that are the cheerleaders and the people that own a project, so it doesn't just, get adopted and implemented and then flounder. So it's always really good to hear that and hear that other people are dealing with those kinds of issues too, and kind of reinvigorate your mind. Yes, we need to hammer down on the basics. We need to own what we're doing, make sure that, things are implemented with fidelity, that they don't just kind of wither on the vine. And so that was the last session I went to. And so it was a good send off.
That's really good. That gun detection, they just launched that here in Chicago, actually, not in the schools, although I think it's probably a good idea to start thinking about school wise, but they actually launched it in our metro, our train stations and stuff, train platforms all around Chicagoland, or particularly downtown Chicago, to give a heads up to the police if there's somebody on one of the platforms that they, if it identifies a gun somewhere in somebody's pocket, or you can kind of see an outline of a gun in somebody's back, back pocket or something. It will detect that and send an alert right to the closest officer that might be around to do that. So that's one of their security features that they've implemented right there in public, in daylight, and at nighttime, you can do all that. So interesting to hear it applied to schools, of course. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah. What about you, Phil? Do you have any good sessions or takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, there were, like you said, it was through a fire hose. There was sessions on how to, attract and retain good employees. Whether it's teachers and trying to recruit good teachers, or and developing a bench for your administrators as well as, folks that might be in the classroom right now, but as they move up. But that also works, in terms of technology and tech staff, developing your benches there and what it takes to do some continuous improvement, continuous learning, and give your staff a chance to improve themselves and improve, obviously, the district because of that investment in improving themselves. So that was kind of neat. Learned a tool about, you brought up AI. There's a new tool that's pretty hot out there right now. I don't know if it's hot yet, but it's making its way around rumor-wise almost. The Google Notebook LL. Actually, it isn't even LLM. It's Notebook LM, so Notebook Language Model. It's an AI tool that could take our jobs away, Andy, you and I. I mean, it literally, you can feed it a topic or feed. I play with it this week. I fed it a research article that I'm using for my dissertation process, and it literally within about 10 minutes, it analyzed the entire article and created a 15-minute podcast on that article. And just thinking of some of the applications of that tool for research, but also for learning. Obviously you want to read the article, but taking that PDF, I'm actually trying it a couple different ways. I fed it a PDF. I didn't read the article. I fed it a PDF, and then I listened to the podcast it produced. And that podcast, back and forth banter, just like you and I are doing right now, back and forth banter between the two hosts, that virtual hosts, and it basically summarized the entire article and the kind of the pros and cons of the article and everything for me. It was a great way to digest new material without having to read it. On the other hand, I want to now read an article and upload it and see how well it actually does capturing the gist of it, or if it captures things that maybe I didn't pick up on when I actually read it. I think that would be a great learning tool from assistive technology for our students. Obviously, we want them to read. That should be a fundamental goal in life, is to be able to read for themselves. But sometimes that's not always possible. Sometimes that's challenging, and this tool could help with that. I've seen some talk, a little chatter on Facebook, actually, with some folks that are talking about educational applications of it, and just the idea of having voice and hearing voice to learning, I think was really was neat. Like we've always said, if we can get one nugget out of the things that we attend, I got way more than just one nugget, but that was one standout nugget that I've really had fun with in the last 2 days even. So
yeah, when I watched that demo where they were doing the podcast in the Notebook LM, my jaw dropped and I had to go back and rewind to my head. Did he say that was AI generated? Because I was like, that can't be. I was really impressed with that. And kind of like what you mentioned, I've been using similar tools with PDFs for studying for my master's, of being able to put in a PDF and then just ask it questions. And especially when I'm stuck on something, that ability to have that, like you said, where you maybe missed something on your first read or you misunderstood it. So powerful just to have that assistive technology, for myself to be able to improve my comprehension and my understanding on my own without having to go, find additional sources.
Yeah. Well, needless to say, obviously, probably the biggest benefit of RTM this time around was meeting you, in face-to-face. So that was really cool. But I know, speaking of this, with the middle of the school year here, or approaching that, there are plenty of other conferences that are out there that are applicable, if you will, to what we do on a day-to-day basis. Are you planning on attending anything? What are you looking at?
Yeah, so I've got a couple on the schedule right now. The one I'm probably most excited about is our statewide technology association conference. So that's coming up just right now in December, and it's always great. It's primarily an instructional technology conference. It's called TETC, Tennessee Educational Technology Conference. Primarily instructional, but we've been working the past few years to try to really build up kind of a technical track to go with it. So I enjoy getting together with those people, having resources that are in your neighborhood that are close by. When something weird comes up, or you have a thought that you can bounce ideas off of. So it's back to that, meeting them in person, seeing them in person, because you're usually interacting over an email listserv or things like that. So that's coming up. Super excited. Past Andy did have the idea that it'd be really cool to present 3 different times at that conference. And so I submitted for 3 presentations and all 3 were approved. Ooh. And so now President Andy's like, oh, curse you. But it should be good. So really focus on trying to build up that technical track.
Sounds like you need to virtualize yourself there
Yes.
somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good. Hopefully they can schedule 2 at the same time, and we can just knock it out. But
There you go.
yeah,
All
so
right.
that's coming up in December, and then the next on my calendar after that is the National Cybersecurity Leadership Conference coming up in February. That's sponsored by K-12-6.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
and so
February, right?
that's February. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
late February. Hope so. I think this one I got a hotel room, but
Yeah.
so that's coming up. I've never been to that one. I think this is the 3rd year they've done it, maybe the 4th.
Okay. Yeah.
Every year I've thought about it after registration's closed or the week after it happens. And so I had this on my calendar way in advance to make sure I hit it this year. So I did have a talk accepted to present there as well on K-12 cyber attacks and what happens, or cyber attacks that we see in K-12 frequently. So that should be fun. So I really like talking shop about, the crazy things that we've seen attackers try to do. So
that should be really good. I've got one of my team members here is going to be attending that same one. I'm hoping he'll get a chance to meet you as well. I've talked about our podcast. He's well aware of that. So I'm looking forward to that for him to bring back that knowledge to our team as well. Excited about that. Of course, in the following month, March, is COSN. If you're not familiar with COSN, the Consortium of School Networking is in Seattle this year. And so we're looking forward to going out to that. That's, I believe, the last week in March. And so that's always a good opportunity to network with other CTOs, tech leaders that are out there that are. And what I always find so valuable is to commiserate in some ways. Hearing from other folks that are dealing with the exact same things that you're dealing with, and how they've met the challenge and overcame the different obstacles that might come their way, and also hear some of the innovation too, that things that I hadn't even thought about that they are already not only implementing but are having success with. And so learn so much. That's a great opportunity to learn so much. I'm actually going to be presenting at FETC. I'm one of the featured speakers, and that is in January. That's used to be the Florida Educational Technology Conference. Now it's the Future of Education Technology Conference, because they're trying to move it around a little bit and make it more national. And so that's a phenomenal one. That one also kind of divides in tracks as well. So there is a tech leaders track. There is instructional folks track. And I'm excited. I'm presenting on some student data privacy on that one, and then also some of my research with AR and VR and the impact of AR and VR in classrooms. So I'm excited to be a presenter at that. And then, COSN, I think I'm presenting as well. But those are a couple of the big ones I know I'm going to be attending. We have our state one in February as well, like you had mentioned, but ours is in February. And so we'll be doing that too, of course. Fortunately, I get the chance to get out and get this and be able to bring it back. And that's where I get the opportunity to cast a vision for our department and start to put some ideas on a roadmap that we can make as goals down the road. Last year, I went to COSN, and we decided to make the commitment to bring on ClassLink because we realized we had some areas of need in our district, and ClassLink met a lot of those needs. So I think in a future podcast here, we'll be talking to some folks from ClassLink as well. So I'm excited about that because they offer some really good tools for cybersecurity, but also for instruction and you name it. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So with the holidays coming around, there's all kinds of, we've got, between Black Friday and Prime Days and everybody trying to get back in the black from being maybe possibly in the red as far as all of the sales sources and places out there. There's all kinds of things that are being released and put on sale. Have you started thinking about your Christmas wish list?
We've always got a wish list going here. So there, especially in cybersecurity, there's so many cool tools and flashy things. And we're kind of like what I mentioned, coming back from that conference about, not going out and buy something if you're not doing some of the basics. So some of the things that we're looking at that aren't necessarily like a purchase for us, but things that we want to kind of onboard is when we came on to a one-to-one program about 10 years ago. We did that with a lot of, work by committee with teachers and administrators and IT staff, and had everybody in the room together. And we worked on coming up with tons of policies and procedures. And one of the things that we decided at that time is that teachers would have the ability to have local admin rights. And they had to pass a class to do that. And so it wasn't just that every teacher has local admin, but there was a process established. And at that time, that was really necessary because we were trying out a new one-to-one. The idea of being able to kind of iterate ideas quickly and be able to install software and things like that was really big need. So we're kind of getting to a maturity point where that's not as much a need anymore, because we have gotten to a point with our mobile device management that it's really easy for us to put a desired software in a kiosk for someone. So we are looking at implementing some kind of just-in-time, just-enough access kind of policies through Microsoft Privileged Identity Management. And so that's my big wish list item to wrap up this year, is to try to get those local admin rights killed off and replaced with that just-in-time access, to where we don't have any users in the district who are full-time local admin rights. So that's my big wish list item. I've had it on my vision board for a couple of years, and we're getting close enough to that maturity point where I think we're just about ready to pull the trigger on it.
Your cybersecurity insurance agent is probably pretty happy to hear that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So all the would-be hackers out there also, you've been put on notice that no elevated privileges for anybody in Andy's district there. So yeah,
we can hope.
Go. That's the ultimate wish list there. That's pretty cool. I guess I was thinking more of for yourself and not so much for your district, but for people in our role, for that matter. Like for example, we actually, I'm on the board of our state technology leaders organization called IETL. It's Illinois EdTech Leaders, IETL, and every year we put out a holiday gift list, because there's so many holidays around this time, and we start putting that together for our tech people, the things that they might want to look at. It's more of a gadgets list, if you will, and some neat tech stuff to get you excited all over again about technology. We even spread it out to the point where there's a kids section too, so that you can think about what kind of cool tech that you could get your kids. But one of the things on the top of this list that we're about to release is a neck and back massager. That you can control, with your phone or whatever, because how often are we under stress as as cybersecurity leaders here in our district? How about that? That's one of the things on which top of the list. Taking care of ourselves.
Well, on that list, I have a good one. So I have a standing desk, and I love it. I've got the walking pad, so I do the walk and type, and I do the whole thing. But when I do want to sit down, I have a tall, like a drafting chair that I use. But the problem with it is it sinks about an inch every 10 minutes or so. And so if I'm really focused, I'll start out, everything's good. And then an hour and a half later, I'm down at my desk. And so I'm in the market for a really nice.
I could see that.
So a nice chair. And I was, the neck and back massager made me think about it. Maybe work that into that and have, the all-in-one solution.
I've seen some chairs like that just recently. I don't know if I saw it on Facebook or somewhere that has warmers and coolers, and you literally plug it in, and you can it has like a USB controller and all that. Might be just the one for you. I'll have to see if I can find the brand of that and get that in there. Get that into our lists here. So
yes.
We've talked about a lot of things today, but we never want to leave without time to share a parting tip. And Andy, you have a plethora of parting tips. These are nuggets and things that hopefully, if you don't get anything else out of our conversation today, that you'll be able to take this little nugget and use it, and it'll help you do your job. So what do you got for us today, Andy?
Yeah. So, and there's a reason we hold this to the end, is to get you to listen this long so you can get the nugget. But there's a tool for identity access management and security configuration kind of audits called Maester. And Maester is made by a guy named Merrill Fernando, who is on the identity team at Microsoft. And it's a series of PowerShell modules. It takes about, I think I counted 8 PowerShell commands to install. It takes about 5 or 6 minutes. But once you do that, it gives you an automated report.
How do you spell Maester?
Maester.
Kind of like it sounds. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So,
Not master, maester.
yeah. And so I in my head, mentally, I kept pronouncing it Meister. And then I watched a video of him talking about it yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, I've been mispronouncing it 4 months.
All
Thank
right.
you." So, but what
Yeah, sure.
okay, but what it does is it gives you an interactive HTML report of a series of security tests. So it takes a total of, I think, 145 different security baseline tests that it gets from Microsoft security team and from CISA. And it is basically, it's running these 140 something commands in your environment to see how you have it configured. And then it takes what your configuration is and compares it to the baseline of what it should be configured to. And so
baseline or best practice, maybe.
Best practice, yes.
Or both.
So
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. So it's giving you what Microsoft and CISA's recommendation is for how that should be configured. And so there's a series of documents from CISA that's the minimum viable secure baseline document that it has for Microsoft 365, Teams, SharePoint, Defender, a whole series of cloud applications. And so it's checking against those and checking against Microsoft's internal kind of security configuration checklist. And so you get this interactive report, and I'll put in the show notes, we'll have a link to how to install this and a sample of what it looks like.
Is it free?
It's free. It's absolutely free. 100%
I love
free.
Free parting tips there. All right.
Yeah, totally open source. But in the report, you can click on areas that you failed, where you had what it considers an insecure configuration, and click on it, and it tells you what the configuration is supposed to be, what you have, how to remediate it, and then information on why they recommend setting it that way. So it's not just you go and check a bunch of boxes. It's actually, it's teaching you how it should be configured, and how to do it.
It won't just do it for you and assume. You still are in full control and command on it.
Correct. Yeah, but it's only giving you the information. So, but then you can take that and you can sort the report by things that you passed or failed. And then you can just start chipping away at those things. So what I do is I'll run it and I'll look at my fail list and I'll pick 5 things. And if I have a slow day, I'll go through and I'll pick one and I'll make sure I get that setting to where it's in a good place. So it's a really easy way to come up with some actionable steps to improve the security of your environment. And like I mentioned, it's open source and they're open to contribution. So there are places on the Meister site where it kind of shows you how you can write your own tests to include and how you can add it to their GitHub. So very, very community-centric, community-driven.
That sounds like a great parting tool. Always on top of it, Andy, as usual. That's great. Appreciate that nugget, and hopefully people can utilize that nugget, investigate it, take a look at it, and see how they can improve their organization because of it. So that's awesome. All right, well, we're about out of time. I know we've got coming up episodes. We're going to be bringing different guests on here and there, so be ready. We've got some. It's not just going to be us talking heads all the time. We've got some good guests coming. But I'm glad we had a chance to catch up after our last conference. And as always, you want to try and keep your space a zero
breach
zone. Yeah, sorry about that, but I love saying it that way. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you and catch up with you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Zero Breach Zone podcast. We hope our conversation left you feeling more informed and empowered to protect our K-12 schools from cyber threats.
A big shout out to our sponsor, Cybernut AI, for making this podcast possible. Cybernut is committed to providing security awareness training designed for schools, helping educators and students navigate the digital world with confidence.
If you want to learn more about how Cybernut can help strengthen your school's cybersecurity defenses, head over to their website, cybernut.com, and sign up for their training program. Together, we can create a safer online environment for everyone in our educational communities.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Connect with us on LinkedIn to join the conversation and help us build a strong community around cybersecurity and education.
Join us next time on the Zero Breach Zone for more insightful conversations. Stay vigilant, stay ahead, and let's keep our schools a
Zero
Breach
Zone.